On episode 62, we're talking about sigmoid curves. Welcome to class. Hey everybody, what's up and welcome to the 88 show. This is the internet's only dental show where we are answering marketing's most important questions because that is what we do. My name is Joshua Scott and this right here is episode 62, coming off of Super Bowl Sunday. I mean, we're here in the office on Monday and man, gosh, what an incredible Super Bowl. Probably greatest Super Bowl, could be one of the greatest performances by a quarterback ever in history. And so, not a big fan of Tom Brady, but man, you got to respect that effort. So big week in advertising and marketing, for sure. You got Super Bowl commercials and everything that goes along around those. Just watching those last night, definitely some political messaging coming across. Probably there's always been maybe a little bit of that, but man, I thought last night there was a significant amount. Just people got stuff to say. People got stuff to say for sure. So that was coming out. Also big news, last week Snapchat announced their IPO, which I find really, really interesting, and their intentions to go public and trying to, saying that the company will get a $3 billion valuation. And which I find really, really interesting because 3 years ago at the end of 2013, beginning of 2014, Facebook actually offered them $3 billion for it and they said no, and kind of turned and said no, no thank you, we don't want your money. What did Facebook do? Facebook went and bought Instagram, which then in the third quarter of 2016 released Instagram stories. And interesting fact, ever since Instagram stories came out, Snapchat's growth has slowed by 84%. And so I think it's really, really interesting that they have had 2 quarters of slowed growth and now they are announcing an IPO. And I actually think it might be a little bit too late and probably the end of the road, or a glimpse of what the end of the road is going to look like for Snapchat. So that's what's happening out there. But today is episode 62 and new topic of the month. We're into February and this month's topic is jump. And we're going to be talking about what the sigmoid curve, what a mathematical logistics function actually teaches us about marketing and really about life. And so I think we're going to draw this. Are we good going to the board and drawing? Let's get into it. So there's an expression in mathematics that's used to describe a logistical function, and it's called a sigmoid curve. It's actually called sigmoid after the Greek word that means looks like an S because you guessed it, looks like an S. And so the sigmoid curve has been used in all kinds of applications. I mean, today we're going to talk about it with marketing, but businesses use this to predict product cycles. The investment financial industry uses it to predict economic seasons. And so it's really become quite useful. The reason why this works is because a lot of us, as somewhere along the way, we've thought our thinking is a very linear type thinking. And so 1 input equals 1 output, 2 inputs equals 2 outputs, and so on. And so if we're looking at that like a graph, it's almost like you've got your graph and there is a straight line coming out at a 45-degree angle. And so everything is linear. But what we know about the universe in general, I mean, second law of thermodynamics states that everything tends towards entropy. And so nothing actually works like that. And so we have these like theories like chaos theory that come along and explain why, 1 input may equal a quarter of an output and why, 2 inputs equals 18 outputs. And so things are not linear. They kind of move all over. And so the S-curve comes along and helps us to put some logic to that. And so what you have with the S-curve is 4 different stages. And the first phase is a building phase. It's starting a business, it's launching a practice, it's getting the investment, the capital, the resources, the energy going and starting something. The second is the growing phase. That's where the project starts taking off, or the product and the sales start going. This is starting to capture market share and becoming one of the main players in the industry. Following that is what we call the maturity of the curve. It begins to start to peak and plateau, where you become the industry leader. It's market dominance. And then following that is the decline of the curve. And so what the S curve is it's a picture of change. It's a picture of the American economy. It's a picture of Apple. It's a picture of Google. It's a picture of the American automotive industry. It's that change always brings about growth, profit, energy, new things, but eventually it plateaus and begins to decline. So there's a genius to the S curve, and it works like this. The secret to constant growth is to start a new S curve before the first one plateaus and begins to decline. And so we've got one S curve, and right about somewhere in here is you want to start the other S curve. And now, so it's very counterintuitive, because at this point right here, everybody in the company is like, things are going great. I mean, this is awesome. Why are we changing things? Why are you mixing it up? But you've started to see the beginning of that plateau or that decline. And so looking over that horizon, seeing that and deciding to make the choice to jump. We got to do something new. We need some new energy, some new life. We need to rework this. And so you make that jump, and it creates this space here, which I technically refer to as funky land, because it's just funky. This space right here, you've started this new S curve, right? Because you've see the future, you see where you're trying to go and create growth, but yet everything was going great. The signals were all good, and so people don't understand it. And this is where we get the term learning curve from, right? Because everything was on this trajectory, it's fine, things are going well, there's no reason to change it, but we do decide to change something, and for a while, it's just funky and it's just difficult. But once that curve surpasses that plateau and that peak, now we're into more growth. Now we're into constant growth. And really the long-term secret to successful growth is it's a bunch of S curves. And as we go through our organization, our business, it's looking at change and becoming intentional about it so that we continue to grow higher and higher and higher, and launching these S curves intentionally. So that's the sigmoid curve. Look, I grew up in south side of Los Angeles, early childhood, and I remember one of my most favorite things and probably memories about growing up during that time was my mom would always take us to the pool in the summer and sign us up for swimming lessons and all those things. And I remember as a young boy being fascinated with the older kids and what they could do, whether it was treading water for 60 seconds over in the deep end, or even just taking a breath and swimming the entire length of the pool underwater. But one of my favorite things was watching them jump off the high dive. And I mean, listen, this was like back when I was a kid. And so, I mean, high dives now, they seem like they're extremely regulated and actually don't get that far off the ground at public pools. But man, this was back when it was just a ladder and probably 20 feet up, just a diving board, and watching the kids just climb up and jump right off. And I remember my mom saying I needed to wait till I got a certain age to actually do that, but I wanted to make that jump. I wanted to go up there and see what that was like. And so I remember the first day I did that, I kind of got off away from my mom and climbed up the stairs and inched my way out to the diving board. And what was really interesting, and I remember this, is psychologists call it rapid cognition, but it's where everything around you just seems to slow down and go into slow motion. I mean, athletes talk about this a lot when they get into the zone, but it's where the periphery of what you're seeing almost blurs and you become, your senses become heightened. And so I remember even looking down and almost seeing wind blow ripples, across the water, the surface, like 20 feet down, and your heart just feels like it's in your head, just beating. And I remember jumping off of that high dive for the first time and coming out of the water and feeling the exhilaration of that. And my mom kind of like, what are you doing? You know, and look, so today we're talking about the SCurve, but really it's jumping off the high dive. And it's looking at your business, it's looking at your marketing and asking, where do I need to jump? What do I need to just take the plunge on this year? You know, maybe it's with marketing, maybe you're kind of down below watching everybody else climb up the digital high dive and you're just still not sure about it, but you're watching. And maybe this is the year you just need to climb up, inch your way out and jump off. Maybe you've never done any marketing, so we just need to get you on there and go, drag somebody up with you that can just push you off the edge and get you in that. But I think that life, whether it's business, whether it's marketing, whether it's life in general, as we look back, we see these periods in our life where there was growth, that kind of building, growing phase, where things were exciting, there was energy, there was resources and momentum. I think we can also look back at places where it began to plateau and even decline. And I think what the SCurve teaches us is that change doesn't have to be something that just we take and it comes at us when it happens and we're a victim of it, but that change can be intentional. And as we saw with creating a SCurve on our own, it's just climbing up the high dive, jumping off and creating something that's new and creating something that's exciting. And so if you're anything like me, you know, I feel like sometimes life can tend towards typical and tend towards ordinary and tend towards boring. And maybe that's where you're at. Maybe your marketing is tending that way. Maybe your practice has tended that way and you're like, I need something. You're not even sure to put your finger on it, what that is. I mean, I'm telling you, you're probably due for a jump. And so my advice for you in 2017, climb up the high dive, inch your way out and jump. Guys, that's been episode 62. Thanks so much for being a part of this. Question of the episode, I think it's real easy. Where do you need to start a new SCurve in 2017? What is it? Where is that? Would love to hear your comments. Leave them down below. Also, this month's featured article is called Jump, and you'll find that online. The link's down below in the show notes. But take a look at that. We talk a little bit specifically about marketing there. And next week on episode 63, or the next episode that comes out, we're going to bring in some specific marketing questions that look at the SCurve and how it relates to marketing. I'm going to answer those. And I think that's it. If you want to follow me, best place to follow me online is at Instagram at Joshua Scott. Jay Moore's going to link that up at Joshua Scott. Leave me your comments, questions. I would love to hear them. Guys, until next time, thanks so much for being here. I'll see you on next episode.